There we go.
Hey everybody, you're listening to We Still Like You, the embarrassing storytelling show where people get up on stage, tell their most embarrassing stories in front of a crowd of people. I'm Jesse Pretend. Now, on this episode, we're playing House Medical Doctor and solving some medical mysteries. A little later on, writer and comedian Calle Hack's mystery illness gets her a spot on the Megyn Kelly Show. But first, Sarah Squirm's boob is bleeding and she doesn't know why. And so as soon as she stops thinking about how cool that is, she's got some questions. Maybe you've seen her on Adult Swim. Maybe you've run screaming from her show Hell Trap Nightmare. From Chicago, comedian Sarah Squirm.
I already am blackout anxious to tell the story. Okay. Ha ha ha. I'm laughing. You're laughing. Everyone's having a good time. I'm actually vibrating. Okay. So blah blah blah. Ha ha. You get. Okay. You guys just have to laugh. Here we are. It's a comedy show. I'm laughing. You're laughing. No. Okay. So one day I'm walking around. Picture it. I'm walking, and I look down at my shirt, and there's like a little red stain, and I'm like, interesting. I'm obsessed. And then I keep going, blah blah blah, walking around. I have another huge red stain on my shirt. I'm like, interesting. Don't remember eating barbecue, but nevertheless, I persist. Walking around, and there's just like these big red stains on my shirt, and I'm like, okay, psycho. I take off my shirt, I'm like, okay, there's red stains coming out of my bra. Interesting. Take off my bra, my left boob, my left nipple is actually gushing blood. So I was like, yeah, so I was like, oh, awesome, I love it. I'm addicted to this happening. I'm obsessed. I run my little ass to urgent care, which... completely uninsured, so this is awesome. It's going, and I'm like, okay, so I'm a Jew from Long Island. I don't know if you guys know this, but Jews from Long Island are addicted to getting breast cancer, seriously. And I have like, yeah, if you're a Jew, yeah, thank you. It's like Jews are like literally obsessed with the Holocaust and breast cancer. It's amazing. And like, and I have like tiny titties, so I was like, if I had big tits, like I would expect a tumor would be floating around, but tiny, hard little rocky boobies, no way. Okay. So I'm crying, and I'm crying, and then the doctor's like, they're like, we have to send you to the cancer ward of Northwestern Hospital. I was like, awesome, this is the best day of my life, actually. Thank you for doing this for me. Crying. I'm like at the front door of the front door. I'm at the front desk of the cancer store, and I'm weeping uncontrollably, and they're like, listen, you have to call your mom and find out if you have this like BRCA gene, which is like if there's breast cancer. Oh, this is such a long story. Stop laughing. Seriously, I only have 8 minutes. Okay. They're like, you have to find out if you have this like BRCA gene. We'll find out if you have Jew cancer. And so I'm like, you don't understand. I literally can't call my mom. Her dad died 3 days ago. Yeah. And I'm like, I really can't stress her out. And they're like, you probably have breast cancer. I'm like, you're right. Okay. So I'm crying on the phone with my mom. I'm like, I'm literally so sorry that I have to do this to you. I love you so much. I'm so sorry, but I'm really scared. Do we have this like BRCA recessive cancer gene? And she's like, oh my God, what's going on? I'm stressed out. My dad's dead. I'm like, yeah, totally. And she's like, you don't have the gene, but like, we'll get through this. Like, we'll figure it out. I'm like, I love you. She's like, I love you so much. Like, you're young. Like, you can get through something like this. It's really scary, but it'll be okay. And then she goes, wait a minute. She's like, there's like literally no, have you been watching Jackass again? And then I remembered, yes, I have. I remembered that 3 days earlier, I actually asked my friend Alex to punch me as hard as he could in the breast. I forgot about that. Basically, it was like right when Trump got elected, I was like, everyone's like, oh, Trump, Trump's got little hands. And I was like, this sucks. Everything was horrible. Nothing was funny, so I just like binge Jackass. Like I'll go through phases where I'll just be like, I'm mentally ill, I'm gonna go watch Jackass for 6.5 weeks. And I was like binging on Jackass, and I'm like, you know, I like needed to see like men destroy the bodies that like got us to Trump's America in the first place, and Jackass is literally I'll go to my grave, Jackass is literally the only thing in the entire planet, so I was like, okay. I literally was like so depressed that I was like, I'm actually quitting everything. I'm going to go to grad school, write a dissertation about how Jackass is actually really radical body politic performance art, because like I was like, actually, seriously, when Dave England shoves a toy train up his asshole, he's actually sort of like demystifying the butthole, you know what I mean? Yeah, and so I was like, and then, I know. It's crazy. It's also not true. I was like, no, seriously, like so the week that I was binging on Jackass, actually, Jackass Live was coming to play at the bottom lounge. It would be Chris Pontius, Wee Man, Preston, and Dave England. And I was like, oh my God, this is my moment. I'm going to do this really interesting performance art project where I get Chris Pontius, who is my crush, to do this trick stunt where he punches me in the tit. We get it on camera. And then I'm like, actually, this is like Jackass for girls. I'm like queering the narrative of Jackass. It's going to be actually... It's actually going to be really interesting and like thought-provoking stuff, and I'll really go to grad school with this one. And so I made this, and then I was like, okay, but it has to have like, if this is Jackass for girls, like how do I carve out my narrative in this boy-centric narrative? Like where do I insert my narrative? And so I paper mache'd these enormous. I made these enormous papier-mâché breasts that were sculptures that had... It is so elaborate. I'm going to kill myself. Okay. They were like water balloons full of fake blood, and when they had these like levers and like this mechanism that was made out of pesticide sprayer that like I would put these like fake boobs that had hand-painted nipples, by the way, with hand-painted nipple hair, by the way, that I would put that in my shirt, and then on camera, like Chris Pontius, my crush, would punch me in the tit, and it would explode blood with these like pulleys and levers, basically, and it would be, oh my God, it was gonna be Jackass for girls, and I was gonna be on True TV. No, whatever. I was just like, this, awesome. I'm obsessed. And so when I built, so like we had to do like a test run before I ambushed the Jackass dudes, and so like we were in my shower with my friend Alex, and we tested it out, and he punched me in the tit. So hence why hospital. But then anyway, so when I did the Jackass when I ambushed the Jackass dudes at the meet and greet, I had like 6 people and like 6 inflatable boobs, and they were blackout on Quaaludes, and I'm like the last, first of all, in a line of insane people, by the way. Meet and greet at a Jackass show. 14-year-old Monster Energy drink tab necklace, mouth breathing, insane people, and I'm the last crazy person in the line, and I'm like, hey, Chris Pontius, you want to punch me in the tit? And they were like, no! And they were so actually really mean to me, and like Chris Pontius was blackout drunk, and he was like, are you a stripper? And I was like, I would take my clothes off for you. And then he was like, I was like, I'm a comedian, this is a thing, and he was blah, 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 and then my friend was like, my friend who was with me was like, no, seriously, Sarah is a really good comedian. Sometimes she brings a bag of her pubes on stage. Don't know why he said that. That is true, and I am embarrassed, and then Chris Pontius was like, actually, girls don't have pubes, and I was like, I would literally suck your dick, I hate you so much. And then blah, 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 and then I hate this, and then I was like, and then I was asking him to punch me in the tit, and he's like, seriously, like you can't punch chicks, but like one day we're gonna be punching chicks left and right. So moral of the story is that Jackass is not actually doing radical queer performance art. I was giving him way too much credit. Don't meet your heroes, but seriously, if anyone knows a way to meet Johnny Knoxville, I would also suck your dick. And if someone's raising their hand, I'll find you after the show. And also, I owe Northwestern Hospital $1,000 that I haven't paid them. Okay, thank you, bye.
Keep it going for Sarah Sherman!
Comedian Sarah Squirm. For more of Sarah, check out her show Hell Trap Nightmare. And if you haven't watched the absolutely insane infomercial she made for Adult Swim, we've got a link to that in the show description. Up next, Calle Hack does daytime TV. Last year, writer and performer Calle Hack made an appearance on the Megyn Kelly Show on NBC to talk about her medical history, which already is gotta be a little uncomfortable. For years, Calle had suffered with immense pain, and her doctors weren't able to say why. In fact, it seemed like they weren't even taking her very seriously. Until they finally figured it out. But I'm getting ahead of myself. In fact, instead of listening to me, why don't we let a real host intro this story?
So for many women, when that time of the month comes around, it's all about pain and bloat and general discomfort. But Calle Hack says her periods were incredibly painful. And for almost 20 years, no one could tell her why. When she finally found out, it was shocking.
Shocking. Calle figured telling her story would be empowering, but the show's producers had a different angle in mind. From Chicago, here's Calle Hack.
So it's going to be quite the journey, but keep with me here. So when I was 15 in biology class, I started getting these like hot flashes and then cold chills. And then I started like salivating to where it was like that copper bloody taste that was like in the back of your mouth. And I just knew I was gonna like vomit. So I like ran to the girls' bathroom and I just start dry heaving and like vomiting bile. And then I got my period. Like every girl's beautiful coming of age story. So, and this set the tone for like what my body would do to me every month for the next 17 years. I went from like missing school to like missing work. I saw over 5 doctors and I would like tell them about the pain and how horrible it was to be in my body. And then they would usually just like nod along and they would be like, well, some women have it worse than others. And then they would just like pat me on the knee and they'd be like, see you in 6 to 12 months. Hope next time it's a normal pap. And then, so I just thought this was like my lot in life. And then last May, I had like one of the worst episodes. I was sleeping over at my then boyfriend's house and I woke up super early. Like my body just like bloated. It felt like it was like just gonna burst. And the cramps were unbearable. I like shifted from side to side, like trying to get any relief. But I just like knew what was coming. So I made my way to the bathroom and I started to run a hot bath. But then before I like could get in, like the salivating started, the hot and cold flashes. And so like I knelt in front of the toilet and I just like start dry heaving again and vomiting until I like black out and just hit my head on the bathroom floor and I just start convulsing. So like my head is like pounding, like just getting like a goose egg on my temple. And like later the doctors would tell me like, oh, you dry heave so much that you like asphyxiated yourself. And it was like not in like the way that I thought my first asphyxiation would be. So I thought it was gonna be like really cute and kinky, but like how we all imagine our first asphyxiation. Like I wish my boyfriend would have like come into the bathroom and just like taken a boomerang of like my naked body just like convulsing and been like, baby's first asphyxiation. Like that would have saved the relationship, truly. But so I was like at this breaking point. I didn't want to be in my body anymore. And so I went and saw another doctor, Dr. Megyn Sheldon. And I explained to her like what the pain was that I was going through every month. And she said something like no other doctor had told me at that point. She was like, that sounds terrible. And I was like, oh, thank you. Like my heart just melted. I was like, somebody is actually taking me seriously. And then she said, we can figure this out. And it was like the heavens opened up and like a beam of light shone down. And I was like, I may not have to continue living like this in pain every month. And then she was like, it might be a combination of syphilis and gonorrhea. And I was terrified. I like quickly went through like my sexual Rolodex, like, who do I have to fucking call? Who can I like not call? But then the doctor then she was like, but it could also be like endometriosis. So she's like, we'll have to do an ultrasound. So we did all the tests, like no syphilis, no gonorrhea, no combination thereof, but like also no endometriosis. So, but the ultrasound did show something. She was like, we found a large mass in your right ovary. And she went on to explain, she was like, what is inside of you is called a teratoma, which like a teratoma like translates to little monster in Greek. And I was like, my boyfriends were right. Like, they knew I had a little monster in me. If you don't know what a teratoma is, it's a type of tumor that has like bone and hair and teeth. There's like, sometimes there's like nerve endings and fat cells. Some women have organs inside of them. They're like pretty gross. When they took it out of me and I went for the follow-up with the doctor, I was like, did it have blonde hair? And she was like, we didn't look, that's pretty gross. And I was like, I paid a lot of money to have blonde hair last summer, and if this thing was blonde and had good bone structure, I'm gonna be pissed. So, but she's like, this is no Clementine cutie that you have in your ovary. Like, this is a full-size Florida orange. Like, it had grown so large that she was like, we have to get it out in the next 3 months, or else it could weigh down your ovary, which would twist your fallopian tube, which would cut off the blood and oxygen supply, and you would go into organ failure. So then I was scared. She was like, check your calendar, let me know when a good time is. And then she was like, but also here's the thing, I'm moving to Denver. I know. I was like, this dermoid is gonna be very expensive for me, like half joking, but I was also like, can I afford to fly to Denver? Like, should I follow my gynecologist across the country and like start a new life with her? Like, I was like, women move for boyfriends all the time. Why can't I move for a very good gynecologist? But that's also when the terror set in. Like, I was relieved that I finally had an answer of like what was happening. But then I also like realized like, oh, I have this like real angry like monster in my body right now. Like, I didn't know like how to move. I didn't want to upset it. I just didn't want it to like kill my right ovary because it was mad at me. But then my anxiety became like worse to me than like the actual tumor. I convinced myself that I was gonna die during surgery. And I was like so scared and so alone. And even though I had like a great support system of friends and family, I have a lot of friends, you guys. But like I didn't have like a partner. I didn't have like a boyfriend. So it was like, I like realized why people get married, why they couple up, because you go through stuff and you're like, oh fuck, I'm gonna die. And then like somebody cuddles you at night. And I just like, I was like, oh fuck, I'm gonna die. And then I like went to bed with my weighted blanket. And it's not like a man, you guys. It's very different. And it's child size, so it's just weird. But then, so I convinced myself that like if I did survive, that like no man was gonna love me if I didn't have a uterus and ovaries. Like, I felt worthless, and I didn't even know that was inside. Like, I'm a strong feminist, you guys, and I was like, where is this coming from? So I was like, oh man, this was like a very dark, scary place for me. And then, so I like asked some guy friends, I was like, they're gonna take everything and then no one will love me. And they're like, no, Calle, it's like your personality that's keeping you single. It's like it's not what's happening down there. And I was like, okay. So I don't know if it was like either fueled by like loneliness or like fear, like extreme lack of like self-worth at this time, but I did like what anyone would do. And I reached out to my exes because like, because I thought like, oh yeah, the way to feel like less alone at this time is to contact people who were already like not wanting to be in my life anymore. I was like, you want to try again? So I just sent out like casual like text feelers like, oh hey, I have a tumor, it might be cancerous. You up? I I just didn't want to be shocked, like, if I died for the grieving process. It was more for them than for me, you guys. Like, they probably, aside from, like, myself, they were, like, physically, like, very close to that tumor at times. So I was like, maybe you got to know him. I don't know. Like, maybe you want to say goodbye, too. I, like, thought this was going to be, like, my romance, like, my, like, Nicholas Sparks, like, the big sick. I was like, this is gonna, I was like, text message and we'll re-fall in love and sparks will fly and I have cancer. And, like, I thought it was going to be great. It was just, like, the thirstiest, like, Make-A-Wish kid ever. I was just like, somebody please fuck me. So I reconnected with some of my exes. And then, like, we haven't talked since because shock, like, cancer scares, like, don't bring people back together. It's like no one's like, oh, that relationship, like, it could have survived if there was a cancer scare. Like, nobody says that. Also, I kind of knew that it wasn't cancer, you guys. The doctor told me, like, there's a very slim chance, but, like, I was like, it might be. So this little monster was, like, overstaying the welcome. And so I scheduled the surgery in January. And the surgery came, and it took longer than expected. It was, like, bigger than what they thought. But, like, when I got out of surgery, my mom was, like, right there by my side. And I, like, woke up, and I was, like, crying because it, like, just started hurting immediately in my whole body. And she, like, squeezed my hand, and she was like, oh, sweet pea. Oh, she's like, that anesthesiologist was very cute. She's like, you should try dating him. And this is probably, like, the only man that could, like, drug me and, like, roll my body to a second location. And my mom would be like, he's nice. Like, marriage material. So when I was recovering at my parents' house, I started drafting an article about my experience. I, like, wrote about, like, how no doctors would listen to me or validate my pain, or how, like, no one would just do a simple ultrasound check, how, like, women's health conditions, like, aren't listened to. Like, we often downplay them because we don't want to feed into these narratives that we're, like, emotional and, like, exaggeratory. But then, like, when there is actually something wrong, the doctors are like, why didn't you speak up more? And it's like, I did. And then I sold the piece to Good Housekeeping. The piece... Why was that funny? Like, is that the shame part of my story? Okay. You're gonna love this next part then. So the piece went viral shortly after it went live, and then a producer from the Megyn I Love Blackface Kelly Show called me. And they were like, they're like, will you come on the show and do a segment about your experience? And my friends were like, isn't she problematic? And I was like, yeah, but it's television.
So it took 17 years and 5 doctors to finally get a diagnosis. Calle is with us to tell us what it was. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
What was it?
So it ended up being, called a teratoma, which is like a dermoid or a tumor that it was the size of an orange, and it has like bone and hair and teeth and fat cells that was growing.
You would assist with teeth and hair in it.
Yeah, I know.
Can you? What was your reaction when they told you?
They told me it was going to be an empowerment piece, and they were going to shape it around like women's advocacy and like how we need like more like just like women speaking up and doctors listening to women. And then it was only after I did the segment and I like talked to some friends and family, and they were like, they build it as like a medical mystery story. They're like, you were a freak piece. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, she got me.
God, thank you for sharing this. I mean, we were like, assist with teeth. Very happy it's out.
It's out.
And that you're well and you share this.
It's like really common, you guys, like to be honest. Like I had women all over like the country like emailing me. They're like, oh, this happened to me, blah, blah, blah. Like I have the same thing. So it's like super common, which like pisses me off that they're like, oh, look at this freak. Because like a ton of women like have it. But I had some light constipation the night before, and I was very stressed out. So I took like a gentle laxative. so I could like look slim and trim on the show. But it didn't work until after I was like sitting down with her, and so I was like still mic'd, and I like ran to the bathroom, and I just like went. So like jokes on her. I hope that fart is like ringing in her ears still. So thank you guys.
Writer and performer Calle Hack. And that does it for this episode of We Still Like You. If you enjoyed today's show, do us a favor and tell someone about it. You'll never know how much it actually helps. If you really want to do us a solid, sign up to support the show on Patreon. Check out patreon.com/We Still Like You. A couple of bucks a month will keep the roof over our heads and get you something cool. If you want to tell a story at one of our live shows, check out the submission page. You can find that at WeStillLikeYou.com. We're on Facebook at We Still Like You. We tweet at We Still Like You. I'm Jesse Batend, and as always, thanks for being your terrible selves.